potato bread and soda farls, okay? So I'm going to do them on the pan. Joe, can you just pull that up a little bit? And I'm going to do the soda bread first because I want to get it in the oven. And it's really, really simple and it's really easy to do, okay? Just put the, yeah, that's great. So in here, I have my granny's baking bowl. I have this years. So this is my lucky bowl. I always use this for baking. And this recipe is really, really simple, okay? So will you go look? There's I'm using wholemeal flour, okay? So I'm just going to sieve it. Going to sieve it a wee bit. So I'm just using wholemeal flour and some plain flour. And if you just give it a wee sieve, so it's 7 ounces of wholemeal flour and 7 ounces of plain flour as well, okay? Now I'm gonna, that's not sieving, so I'm just gonna put it in, and then I'm gonna sieve the plain flour. All right. Just in there. I'm just gonna sieve this together, okay? And then just give it a good mix around. This is a really nice soda bread recipe. It's so easy to make. So I'm just gonna read out the recipe for you. I have it here. Just give me a second. So it's 6 ounces, it's 170 grams of wholemeal flour and 170 grams of just 6 ounces of plain flour, okay? And just mix it all together. Now, a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of salt, okay? So just a wee pinch of salt. That's, okay, I'll put it in this one here. So just a half a teaspoon of salt, okay? Put that in as well. And then for this recipe, I'm using bicarbonate soda and I'm using buttermilk, okay? So buttermilk is just the, whenever you're making butter, it's the milk that's left from the butter, okay? So for this recipe, it's a half a teaspoon as well of bicarbonate soda. And I'm just going to sieve it, okay? So what this does is create carbon dioxide. It makes it, when you put it in the oven, you know, the heat hits it, then it expands, okay? So I'm just going to use this. So it says on the recipe half a pint, okay? When I was explaining this to another group, or maybe I explained to you as well, whenever you're baking, okay, whenever it says in the recipe about the liquids, it'll say, say this recipe it says half a pint of buttermilk. Sometimes you don't need half a pint, okay? So what we're looking for is a dough that we can, you know, that you can hold in your hand, and whenever you put a little bit of flour, you can roll it out and knead it and shape it. So you don't want it too sticky, okay? So sometimes the flour, it depends on your temperature of the room and the temperature of the flour and the time of the year. So it'll absorb the liquid at a different rate. So also if the buttermilk is thick, or if it's runny, it depends how old your buttermilk is. It all depends on these different factors. So the trick is when you're baking is to add your liquid slowly, okay? And then just mix it up. And you want it to come into a ball of dough, okay, for this bread. So I'm just going to add it slowly. So what happens if you add your half pint of milk? You might end up, it might be too sticky for you, and then you'll have to add more flour, and then your consistency won't be, it'll be, you know, it'll crumble on you, and it won't be, when you go to slice it, it won't be this good texture that it should be, you know. So if you remember them little tricks. So baking is kind of very scientific compared to cooking. That's why whenever you're baking, I know, like my mother-in-law, she bakes, but she doesn't weigh anything. She just uses her hand. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that do that as well. Am I right? Just throw in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah. But baking is very scientific. So just whenever you're, as I said, weighing out your ingredients and all, make sure you're doing it and it's accurate, okay? So just add another wee bit in the middle. So this is starting to come together, okay? You don't want it too wet. You want it to a nice dough. You don't want it too dry. You have to make sure that all the flour is incorporated into it, okay? So just another wee drop of milk. All right? And that's it there. Now I can see the way it's coming into a ball. You see that? All right. And then what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to add some flour. Okay. So I'm just going to use this wee thing of flour here. I'll just get a wee spoons. I'm going to put some flour in a bowl just to have it here at the side. All right. Yeah. So we just use a wee bit of flour over on your island to make sure it's nice and clean, or your board. And I have a tray here with greaseproof paper, okay? And I'm going to put it onto that. Well, first of all, I'm going to sprinkle some flour, not too much, okay? And roll it out. See the way it's all come out together, okay? It's a little bit wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it in the flour, okay? You don't want to handle it too much. We're just going to make sure we get it into a nice into a ball, okay? So if you get your two palms of your hands and turn it around like that, okay? Sprinkle another wee bit of flour. Now I'm using greaseproof paper, but I'm just going to sprinkle a tiny bit of flour on it as well, okay? And what I'm going to do then is make sure your hands are dry and rub some flour. Flatten it down like that, okay? Just turn it around in your hands, the palm of your hands, and flatten it down, okay? And we'll just get a knife and we'll cut it. Now, dip your knife in the flour, okay? And then make a cross like that. Now, if any children are doing this, they say this is to let the fairies out of the bread, okay? So you make a cross to let the fairies out of the bread. And then put your tray down. Can everybody see what I'm doing? And then just put it in the middle, okay? So it's about 7 inches in width, okay? And it's about the size of from my thumb to my knuckle, okay, in depth. And then I'm going to put it in the oven. So I'm putting it in at 190 degrees because my oven is a fan oven, okay? And that's about gas mark 5, okay, if you're cooking it in a gas oven. So I'm going to put this in now, with the timer on it. Just going to put the timer on. Yeah. So see how easy that is to make. So if you want to be organized, you can have your ingredients weighed out in little bags, you know, the little sandwich bags, and have them in your drawer, and have all the flour, the salt, and the bicarbonate soda already in it. So when you want to make it, just empty your bag in and use your buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk, you can always use fresh milk, like full milk, you know, sweet milk, and add some lemon juice to it and leave it sitting for about 10 minutes, and then it'll curdle. And if you haven't got lemon juice, a bit of vinegar will do as well. And what happens is it'll curdle it, because because the soda bread flour is an alkali, you need an acid to work with the flour to make it rise, okay? So
how much lemon juice or vinegar for a half pint of milk?
For a pint, well, for this recipe, a half pint, probably a teaspoon of vinegar or a teaspoon of lemon juice. Yeah. So that's if you don't have it. Okay. Now, I'm just going to wash my hands. I'll just get this wee bowl around. Give me a second. Yeah. I'm going to use this bowl again because it's a good bowl for baking in. All right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to prepare the soda bread, okay, the soda farls. I'm going to do soda farls, and I'm going to prepare them and leave them sitting just for a few minutes to let them rise before we fry them. And I'm just doing them in a saucepan or a frying pan. So this is just a non-stick pan. It's heavy based, so you kind of need a heavy based pan to do this. You know, if you have an agate or a cooker like I have, you can do them on the slow side. They come out lovely on the slow side as well. Tonight I'm just going to use that. It's going to be sitting in front of you, then you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do then is the soda farls. I'm just getting me recipe for them. So for the soda farls, it's 7 ounces of bread flour, soda bread flour. Okay, so soda bread flour has all the baking agents. That has the carbonated soda, and has a little bit of baking powder and salt in it. Okay, so you don't have to add any more. So I'm just going to sieve it. So that's 7 ounces, Dusty, 7 ounces of soda bread flour. All right. And then we're going to just use buttermilk as well. Okay. So that's all we're using. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to heat up. No, I'll not heat up the pan yet because I'm not going to really cook these yet. So I'll get the pan ready. Just have it here sitting ready. Okay. Now I'll just move my scales out of your road so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So that's all you need for that recipe is 200 grams, which is 7 ounces of soda bread flour. Now soda bread flour, this one here, you can get Neil's. This is Morton's, or you can get O'Neill's flour. You know, and it's really really great to have that in your house because you can make so many things with it. And as I said, if you haven't got the buttermilk, don't worry about it. Just add, the vinegar or the lemon juice. All right, so we're going to make these, and I'm going to show you how I do these. So the recipe says 7 fluid ounces of buttermilk, but I'm just going to add the buttermilk slowly. Now they said years ago these were they're really traditional breads, what I'm making, but soda bread was for when somebody called and they had, to make them something to eat, to socialize, when this was like hundreds of years ago, they would have used they would have made this and then stuck it on their griddle. I'm sure you have seen the griddles, so that was just an easy way of making bread. It was a quicker way than doing it in the oven. So they'll take about 6 to 8 minutes on each side to cook, so probably not even that, So just slowly add, as I said, don't add all your milk in. Just because it says in the recipe, don't throw it all in. Just always add slowly. So we want this to be a dough as well, okay? So the one we're doing is an oven baked soda, and then this is the one for the pan. Okay, and you don't need to add your milk too quick. Yeah.
Question there from Joan. If you wanted to make wheaten farls, do you just change that to wheaten flour?
Yes, just use. I would use the coarse. You can get 2 types of wholemeal flour. Okay, you can get coarse and medium. So I would use the coarse one. Okay, and just half flour, half the recipe. So 3.5 ounces of wholemeal flour and 3 ounces of the plain flour. If you want to make them just wholemeal, you can just use the wholemeal flour. Okay, but I would use the coarse one. All right, so it's coming together. It's a little bit sticky, so I'm going to add just a little bit of soda bread flour to it. All right, just to make it come together. All right. Now this one's a bit lighter than the other one. Seems to be a little bit more. I'm going to put some more flour on here, okay? And we're just going to. Now you don't really need a rolling pin. How are you getting on, Mary? Are you cooking? She's not answering me. Mary,
It's in the oven. The soda bannock thing is in the oven.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
That's all we're making.
Oh, that's all. That's grand. That's, yeah. You'll enjoy
What temperature? What temperature for a fan oven?
190, Mary.
Grand, thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to bring this into a wee. I'm going to add a little bit more flour because it's a little bit sticky. Okay. And then just bring it together. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it onto this. So I'm going to flatten it out with my hand. Okay. So you want it to be about diameter about 7 inches, okay? The 7 inches is on my hand is like the top of my finger to my wrist, okay? And then just, what did I say? I'm just looking for the depth because I think it's just like 1 centimeter. So just flatten it out a bit, okay? And then same thing, get your knife. All right, and then we're going to cut these into 4. So I'm just going to stick the knife into the flour just so the knife doesn't stick, okay? And we're just going to cut them into 4. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flour the board. I'm just going to leave these sitting up on the board while we do the potato bread. And then what will happen is they'll start to rise, okay? So they'll rise up a wee bit, and then we're going to cook them in the pan, okay? So that's your soda farls. Now sometimes you can, you know the way you get fruit slims, you can do these the same with some fruit in them. So they're kind of similar. So I'm just going to leave them sitting here. I'll just leave them sitting there for a few minutes on the heat over there, and it'll help them rise up a wee bit. Now there's no yeast in them, but the mixture of the buttermilk with the soda bread flour creates carbon monoxide or dioxide, and it increases it up and it rises. So when we cook it, they'll rise up and they'll be lovely and fluffy. Okay, so just give me a second. Just gonna wash my hands here. And then I'm just going to show you how to make potato bread now. Now, potato bread is really easy to make, and if you want to make this, you can have your potatoes ready from the day before. You know, if you have leftover mashed potatoes, it's a great way of using them up. Let's throw this in the sink. So I'm just going to wipe down this mess here. So for potato bread, it's really easy. All you do is use a little bit of flour, some potatoes, and some butter. And same thing, you roll it out, make a dough, and you roll it out. So I'm just going to wash this down. Give me a sec.
For that, then
So I'm just going to wash this here. And just tidy up when as you're going along. All right. Make your life easier. All right. Now, so over here I have some potatoes, okay, that I've already made earlier on, and I've mashed them. All right, so they're I'll just get my recipe. So potato bread, the recipe for that is 450 grams of cooked potatoes, okay, and 55 grams of butter, 110 grams of self-raising flour, and a pinch of salt, and that's it, okay? So in here I have some mashed potatoes. Now I have some butter which I'm going to melt, because if you're doing this and your potatoes are hot, okay, you can add your butter and the butter will melt. But because these are got a bit cold, I'm going to stick this in the microwave and melt it, okay? And then I'm going to put these in here. All right. Now this is, has anyone ever made fudge before? I did this with another workshop, another group, and we put apples in it, and we made like fudge. So you make like grated apples, potatoes, and then made like a cake out of it. It seems to be more popular around Armagh, around that direction. It's probably just used up apples, you know. So I'm going to put in the melted butter and then some salt. All right, a wee bit of salt. And then I'm going to add in the flour. So it's 110 grams of self-raising flour, okay? And it's probably self-raising flour, so it'll give it a bit of height whenever you cook it. You know, you still wait, sometimes they'll rise up. Okay. Now, just leave that over there. Now just give it a good mix. And then just make sure you get all the butter and the spuds and everything into. Now I'm going to put on the pan here and get it hot, okay? So I have the pan on a bit. You don't want it too hot, okay? You don't want your pan to be burning. So I'm just going to leave it sitting there, okay? And then we'll get these potatoes. Okay, now I just want to show you these. So you can see these and they're starting to rise a little bit, okay? So just leave them for another few minutes. So you see how easy they are to make. You wonder why everybody buys them. I'm guilty as well, you know, but they are so easy to make. Does anybody ever make their own? Thumbs up.
No, but you can see how if you'd leftover mashed potatoes, it's definitely a good way of using them up.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And how many times have you thrown out mashed potatoes that have never, you know, they're lying in the fridge and they don't get used up?
Exactly.
Then,
Joanne, I often wondered how they were made.
well, if that,
I
Joe.
often wondered how they were made.
Oh, there you are.
There you go. Now you've taught me something tonight.
Yeah, you've no excuses now.
Nope.
All right. Okay, so same thing, flour on the board, okay? So it's a bit like a dough. You have to be able to hold it in your hand, okay? And then we're just going to use a little bit of flour. And then pan's nice and hot, okay? Oops, I think I grabbed me rolling pin here. So I'll just use a rolling pin for this. All right. I'll just roll it out. So this would probably go out, I'd probably go out to about 8-9 inches on this one. Okay. And roll it out. So this is to be rolled out a little bit thinner than the farls, because you know the way when you get a soda bread farl, they're quite thick. These ones aren't as thick now. So you can make these into, you can cut these with wheat cutters, which I'm going to show you. So it's a great way for kids. Okay, so I have like wheat cutters here. So you don't have to just cut them into triangles or wee squares. You can make them into little shapes. Okay, so it's a great way of getting kiddies to eat some potatoes. You know, it's a good way of using them up. A good fun way. So the pan's nice and hot, okay? See that there? So when you're cutting, I just always dip them into the flour. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple of love hearts. And I'm going to do a couple of stars as well. All right. And then you can just put them in the pan. You don't need any oil in the pan, okay? Don't need any oil. It's just dry frying, but you need to keep it, just keep it on a low heat, okay? And we'll just let it cook away. So what I would do is cut out all the shapes first. And if you can lift them up with your shape cutter, then put them into the pan as you do that, you know, that's handy. I would cut them all up first, and then I would roll up the rest of the dough, a bit like doing apple tart. All right, I'll do one more love heart, and I'll show you. All right, we'll just lift them up so they're nice and sturdy. They're about the thickness of my nail, okay? So my nails are quite short, so it's just about the thickness of my nail. And we're just going to let them fry away there for a few minutes. And then we'll roll this up. So just add a wee bit more flour. All right. So we're just letting them sit there for a few minutes before I turn them over. Okay.
Joanna,
Yeah.
Joanna, your video's going out of focus there. Is the video moving? You're going out of focus a few times
Right.
there? You're disappearing. Like,
Wait, I'm just turning, hold on.
it's okay now, but it does do it.
Right, you know, it could be your internet. It might be my internet because I noticed that the other day I was doing something and the internet was, and we have like super fiber broadband, so we never had any trouble before. But I have noticed in the last week or two, it's kind of breaking up.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
it's okay now, but at times it just goes out of focus, very out of
Right.
focus, and then back again. So it's okay. Just,
Right. If you miss anything and you want me to repeat it, let me know, won't you? Because I be talking to me and nobody's listening to me.
we're all listening intently.
That's good. Now I'll move this over here and then you can see what I'm doing. So I've turned one over, so it's kind of golden brown, okay? So you just be gentle with them and turn them over using your finger if you can, all right? You don't have to use your fingers now. I just have asbestos fingers, so they're nice and golden brown and they'll be firm to touch, okay? Just be careful when you touch them, okay? And then all right, so just let them cook. So you don't need any fat in these in the pan. I suppose the butter in them, you know, the butter is kind of giving it that golden brown color. So you don't need to fry them. I know when you buy them in the shop, you know, that's the color they are and the feel of them, they're dry. So I know if we buy it, then sometimes the boys like it fried. You know, if you're having a fry or anything, they would like it fried. Does anyone else do that?
Oh yes, I
Yeah.
love a plate of bread and a fry.
Yeah, and I know people fry it in the bacon fat. That's like a big favorite here as well. But sometimes I toast it and then they go mad. But anyway, you can't beat a nice fried bacon. I never heard of it until I came up here.
It's more if it's an oyster fry, really, plate of bread.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not in the southern fry. It's definitely an oyster fry thing, isn't it?
Yeah, an oyster, yeah. I never heard of potato bread till I came up here. So
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I remember the first time I ate, I was in Belfast in a restaurant in Belfast, and I couldn't believe it. It must have been deep fried. It was so much grease on it. So I'm going to take these out now. These are really ready, okay? And because it's not like the dough as in the bread, or you know, it'll not take as long. So I'll just turn them over. So you want them a nice and firm on to touch, okay, and a nice golden brown color. So if you have your pan, if your pan is smoking, then if there's smoke coming out, you'll know it's too hot. So just turn it down, okay. So it says on this 4 or 5 minutes on each side. So what I'm going to do, if I want to fry these, is I'm going to put these in the oven for a few minutes. I'm just going to put them into the bottom oven and just let them finish off cooking. But they're more or less cooked. I'm just going to finish them off in the oven so I could show you the rest, okay? So that's the wee potato breads, okay? I'm going to stick them in this oven. Let them cook away. Now I have more potato bread here. I'm just going to make like wee triangles. So I have a circle and I'm just going to put it into 6, okay? I'm just going to cut it into 6 and then that's your wee potato breads. But I won't fry them now. Just put them on a plate, keep them for later on. Okay, so it's a great way. If you have potatoes left over, say on a Friday evening, make up your potato farls and put them in the fridge. And then you can fry them the next day for the weekend. They're so handy. I'm just going to leave these over here. I'm just going to check this bread. Yeah, the bread's coming on okay. Now I still have the pan at the same temperature, okay? I'm going to keep the pan at the same temperature for the farls as well, okay? Just want to mix this out. Right, so I'll just move this in the middle. And then with the farls, you can see they're starting to rise, okay? They've a few wee bubbles in them. So we're just going to put them in the pan. All right, and do the same. And just fry them without any oil or any grease. All right, and just let them cook away there. Now you can beat these with a bit of butter and a bit of jam, a cup of tea. Sure you can't.
Yeah.
So I'll leave them there. And then you just leave them sitting for, just let them sort of sit. And I'm going to read out a few things. I was looking up about breads today. Okay, so I'll just tell you a little bit about the history. In Ireland, plain soda bread is as likely to be eaten as an accompaniment to a main meal to soak up gravy, as it is likely to appear at your breakfast. It comes in two main colours, brown and white, and two types are cake and farl. People in the south of Ireland tend to make cake. So the one I done in the oven is like soda bread, an oven soda bread, so it's more cakey. And up here, people tend to eat it, you know, on the pan and like a griddle, done on a griddle. Though you can get both kinds in the north and south. The potato farl is similar to a potato pancake and is made basically of fried mashed potatoes. It's highly associated with Northern Ireland and in particular with its main city, Belfast. So the word farl, it's pronounced farl, F-A-R-R-E-L, and it derives from the old Scots word fardel. Did anyone ever know it was called a fardel?
No, but I always thought it was called far, not farl.
Yeah.
No, it's F-A-R-L. I would have pronounced it far.
Yeah. But it's then what that means is it's a quarter. So it's a quarter because it's a circle cut into four. And many types of typical Irish breads and potato pancakes are round doughs cut into quarters and are cooked in a skillet, which is how the farl got its name. So this is the modern day skillet. Okay. The potato farl's history is tied closely together with Irish soda bread or soda farls for a few important reasons. Ireland's climate lends itself to growing softer wheat, which led to a popularity of baking breads without yeast. So, you know, if you're making bread, you use strong flour and then you have to use yeast with it. So here we just use this light flour and you don't need the yeast, and that's why you can fry it. Like if you tried to fry soda, you know, strong flour, you wouldn't be able to use strong flour in this recipe. So that's why it's soda bread or potato breads in a pan. But because Ireland was known through the ages as a particularly poor country and potatoes were a very economical food, about 2/5 of the population was solely reliant on potatoes for a number of historical reasons in the famine. A poor country discovered that potatoes and milk made nutritious enough meal to exist on, and you could grow more potatoes per acre than any other crop. But soda bread was probably not as wasn't made as much for this reason. But then after the famine, began to change from potatoes to soda bread in 1845. After the famine, during the famine, approximately 1 million people died and 1 million more emigrated. So, so that's how they ended up. After the famine, they started using this flour instead of potatoes. So I'm going to just turn it over. All right. So see, if you listen, you can hear the knocking. Okay. So it's quite hard.
Joanne, how long had you that on one side there for?
Probably about 4 minutes.
All right.
So it says in the recipe 8 minutes each side, but I think 6 minutes each side gives because these are quite thick. Because you don't want the middle of it to be doughy. So I've done it for 4 minutes on each side, okay? And I'm still going to turn it around again. So I'm going to say 6 minutes each side, so 12 minutes altogether should do these ones. It just depends on the thickness of them. If they're very, very thick, you might need to leave them a bit longer, okay? Because you know the way sometimes when you put into them, then they're all soggy and they're not, like, you want them to be soft, doughy, like a soft dough, like nice and airy and hard on the outside, okay? So whenever they're finished cooking on that side, I'm going to turn them over for another minute, and then I'm going to wrap them in a clean tea towel and just leave them. So what that does is then it creates a bit of steam and it softens it so the crust is kind of edible then, you know. All right, so can everybody see that?
They look great.
I'll show you it. So that's just, yeah, perfect. And they're so easy to make, and I don't know why I never do them. I don't know why myself I don't do them like 2 or 3 times a week, but they're so easy to make. So if you just keep pushing it down with your finger, you'll feel how soft they are, and you'll know they're not ready because they're like, when you push them down, it kind of oozes out at the sides, and you can hear it. You can hear like the squidge. So when you hear the squidge, it's not cooked. So just make sure when you're pressing it, and keep them separate because they can stick together as well. So just keep them separate in your pan. All right. So I'm just going to check on this soda bread here. Yeah, the soda bread's nearly ready. Has anyone any questions? I see there's some in the chat there. What temperature in a fan oven? 190 degrees in a fan. And yeah, you can make wheat and farls, yeah. Love potato bread, but never made it. Love it too, especially the fried. Yeah. Yeah, so has anybody any questions? Okay, Hilary, that's grand. Thank you for coming on. Has anybody any more questions or?
Joanne, I have a question. What's the difference between soda bread flour and say plain flour?
Soda bread flour has see this here, your bicarbonate soda.
Yeah.
Which is either, some people call it bread soda.
Yeah. So is that plain flour and that on the bicarbonate, is that what soda bread flour is basically then?
I'm just telling you, it's wheat flour. It has sodium, it has raisin agents in it, so it's a self-raising flour with bicarbonate soda and baking powder in it as well. There's a wee bit of baking powder. So that's why you don't, whenever you buy that, you don't have to worry about adding this to it.
Yeah.
But whenever you do use this flour, you always have to use, because this is an alkali, okay? And you want to create air to make it rise, you have to add an acid, which is the buttermilk.
Yeah.
Or remember I was saying about making your own buttermilk?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to check this here. So the soda bread, how you know if your soda bread is ready is turn it over. And if you can knock it, and you can hear it knocking, then you know it's ready. I'm going to leave mine, I'm turning mine over, and I'm going to put it back in for another 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, because it's still a little bit soft. So I just want to make sure that it's inside of it is nice and it's not raw. You don't want raw dough. So I'm going to turn these over again. Okay. So if you see my pan and if you notice there's no smoke coming out of it, okay. So there's no fat in the pan, there's no grease in the pan, and there's no smoke. So it should just be sitting there coloring away. Okay, that's just it should be just working away itself with no steam.
Is that on like a medium temperature, that pan?
Yeah, it's very low. Well, it's kind of low. That's it up full. Then if you turn it down to just between low and medium. Okay.
And did you have it at that temperature from the start? You know, preheating.
Yeah. I never moved it.
Okay.
Okay, so I just left it at that temperature. And yeah, so if you feel the sides of it, it's not sticky anymore. If it's not like doughy and sticky, you can feel the sides of it, then you know it's nearly ready. So I've just turned it over for another 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, and just let it cook there. I'm just going to get some butter and some jam now. Show you. Will not last long here when they all come in.
Joanna inviting us round to taste it.
There'll be nothing left to taste. Leave it again. We'll just put some jam in here. All right. Now another trick I meant to say to you is if you're making your soda bread barrels, is if you have any chopped bacon, okay, cooked chopped bacon, you can add that in as well, and let the, you know, don't put raw bacon in it, but if you have cooked chopped bacon, you can add that to this, and it's really nice when you slice it. You get nice chunks of bacon in your bread. Okay. Sorry, I just want to get butter here. And I just want to show you this as well. So if you want to make treacle bread as well, when you're making your soda bread, you can add a teaspoon of treacle to the milk, okay, and then add it in. So you get like treacle bread. Does anyone like treacle bread?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So use that with your soda bread flour, and just put a teaspoon in with your milk, and make sure you mix it up well with the milk, and then add it to it, okay, and it's delicious. So, okay, so I'm going to turn off this gas now. That's it ready. And then I have a tea towel here. So this is a clean tea towel. I'm just going to wrap these ones up, and then just put them into your tea towel and cover them for a few minutes. All right.
Joanne, you didn't put any flour in the pan or anything, did you?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't put anything in because I had flour. I had flour on the board, so there was enough flour on the base of them, you know. So
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just going to wrap them up for a few minutes and then turn them over just to keep the steam in them. And the steam, what that does is it softens the crust a little bit. Okay, so and then I'm just going to take out this soda bread. Yeah, so that's ready now as well. So how you know it's ready is if you lift it up and you can hear it knocking, okay? So the bottom will be quite firm and the top is nice and crunchy. All right, so that's the soda bread. Now you can double up your recipe if you want to make 2 of them, okay? And you can freeze it. You can cut it up in halves or quarters, you know, if you're not going to eat it all in the one day, and you can freeze it. And then the next day, just take it out, and it just tastes as good as when you put it, you know, before you put it in. Now I'll just get some of these out. They smell lovely, actually. So I'm just going to put a few of these on the tray. Some of the love hearts and the stars. Okay. Now I'll just move that down here. Now they won't last long either, I'd say. And then I'm just going to take one of these here and just put it out. All right.
Pull
And
it
then
all back to you a bit, Joanna, will you?
what do you say?
Pull it all back to you a bit. We can't really see it properly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, aye, that's better. You can see it now. Great.
Get a wee dish here on it. Yeah, so there is different ways you can vary, as I said, with the treacle bread. You know, you can have treacle bread and bacon in the soda bread, or you can put fruit into these as well. You know, you can put fruit into the sodas. All right. So I'll just show you that now. So there you go. And that was like just in an hour how much we made, like potato breads, soda bread, and soda barrels.
That's
So
great. It's a great display.
Yes,
yeah,
lovely.
hopefully it's given you all a bit of inspiration, you know, to do a bit of cooking yourselves, because it is so easy. I've given you all the recipes. I just be careful when you're adding your milk. That's the thing I find people have trouble with, that they just add the liquid when they're cooking and they don't realize that it doesn't really need all the liquid that it says on the recipe. You know, it just depends. Like my kitchen's quite warm, so when I was adding the liquid, it's absorbing it quicker, you know. So yeah, and the temperatures are just for the soda farls. Now I wouldn't cook them for 8. It says on the recipe cook for 8 minutes on either side. Now they were only cooked for probably 6 minutes on either side, so they were only cooked for about 12 minutes. And these ones here, these little potato ones, are already cooked. Now they're ready to eat. And I'll tell you what, I'll slice some of this bread. Show you what it looks like inside. So just put it down. All right. And then when you feel the bread, it should be nice and moist, okay? It shouldn't be too dry or shouldn't be wet. And then you know it's ready. So your crust is nice and hard, and the bottom is quite hard, and inside's nice and soft, okay? So that's us there, okay? And next week we're making fruit scones, and I'm going to show you how to make treacle bread next week as well. Okay, I think that's what we're doing next week. I have it wrote down somewhere, but I think that's the plan for next week, is fruit scones. But I'll show you like different varieties of scones and how to make them nice and fancy, and how to make like cherry scones or coconut scones or wheat scones, you know. And I'll show you a nice way how to present them, so you can have them for afternoon tea, which will be good enough because next weekend it's Mother's Day, so there's no excuse then is to do a bit of cooking.
That's great. Can I just say to everybody that's taking part tonight, since this is a new course, Anne-Marie will have sent you out the Zoom link today or yesterday, and that's the same Zoom link for every night, okay? So just keep that saved somewhere and that'll join. And you'll all have the recipe sent out to you as well. As long as you've registered through our Eventbrite, you'll have got that today. Also, I'll be putting this video up on our YouTube channel. Anne-Marie will send you out the link, so you can refer to this video anytime. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're stuck when you're making it,
for anybody that, it was in the junk email, so anybody that didn't get it, that's where it might be if they think they haven't got it, because mine was in the junk, but I didn't know that.
If you've registered on Eventbrite, Anne-Marie sends everybody that's registered out the Zoom link and the recipes. So if you haven't got it, it may be in your junk mail. You're right, Pamela.
Yeah.
So
no, that's grand. I actually went into the link from last week and then I realised, and I said,
I could see that, Joanna. It said, Joanna has joined your healthy and handy cookery, and I had already deleted that healthy and handy cookery.
I know they said to me the host has another meeting whenever I was trying to get in under the same link.
Yeah, I created a new Zoom link for this new course, so.
Yeah, no, that's grand. I'll have a look at my Zoom or my what do you call it? The junk.
We should be all right next week. We should be fine next week.
Be all right for next week. Okay.
But thanks, Joanna. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone. Hope you
See you
enjoyed
next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.